When Twilight Zone, the movie began production in 1982, it was supposed to be a nostalgic tribute to one of television's most iconic series. Directed by Hollywood heavyweights like John Landis, Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, and George Miller, the anthology film promised to reimagine Rod Serling's classic stories for a new generation. But instead of becoming a celebration of imagination and wonder, the film became infamous for one of the darkest tragedies in Hollywood history. During the filming of one segment, a horrifying on-set accident killed veteran actor Vic Morrow and two young children, Micah Din Liu and Renee Shini-chun. The incident was so gruesome, so preventable, and so publicly scrutinized that it permanently changed the way films are made and cast a shadow over everyone involved. This is the story of Twilight Zone, the movie, the film that Hollywood wishes it could forget. By the early 1980s, the original Twilight Zone series, which had aired from 1959 to 1964, was already considered legendary. Rod Serling's eerie anthology mixed science fiction, morality tales, and psychological horror, leaving behind a cultural legacy that defined the genre. Warner Brothers believed a big-budget film adaptation could capture that same magic. They assembled a dream team of directors: John Landis, fresh off hits like Animal House and An American Werewolf in London; Steven Spielberg, riding high after E.T.; Joe Dante, who would later direct Gremlins; George Miller, creator of Mad Max. The movie was structured as 4 segments, each directed by one of these filmmakers. Spielberg and Landis, the biggest names at the time, were given the highest profile assignments. But Landis's segment would take the film, and Hollywood itself, down a path of destruction. John Landis's segment was an original story, not a remake. It followed a bitter, racist man named Bill Connor, played by Vic Morrow. After spewing racist tirades, Connor suddenly finds himself transported into different historical settings, each one forcing him to experience life as the oppressed. He becomes a Jewish man fleeing Nazis, a black man being hunted by the KKK, a Vietnamese villager fleeing American soldiers. It was meant to be a dark morality tale, forcing Connor to face the same hate he once dished out. But Landis wanted a shocking finale, Connor redeeming himself by saving 2 Vietnamese children during a helicopter raid. To film this, Landis insisted on using real helicopters, real explosions, and child actors, despite safety concerns. That decision would prove catastrophic. On July 23, 1982, just after 2:30 a.m., the crew was shooting a climactic scene in Santa Clarita, California. Vic Morrow, playing Bill Connor, was carrying 2 children, 7-year-old Micah Din Liu and 6-year-old Renee Shini-chun, through a swampy set as a helicopter hovered overhead. The script called for Morrow to carry the kids while explosions went off around them, with the helicopter swooping dangerously low to simulate a chaotic war zone. Witnesses later testified that John Landis pushed the crew for more explosions, more intensity. Pyrotechnics detonated around the helicopter, causing it to lose control. In seconds, disaster struck. The helicopter, disoriented by the blasts, spun out of control. As Vic Morrow and the 2 children tried to escape the chaos, the helicopter's rotor blades came crashing down. Morrow and Micah were decapitated instantly. Renee was crushed to death. The set fell into stunned silence. What had been staged as Hollywood spectacle had turned into real-life horror. News of the accident spread like wildfire. It wasn't just the tragedy, it was the details. 2 children, hired illegally outside of child labor laws, had died alongside a respected actor. And it had all happened under the watch of some of Hollywood's most powerful directors. John Landis in particular faced immediate scrutiny. Witnesses claimed he had ignored repeated safety warnings. Crew members testified that explosions were detonated dangerously close to the helicopter. The tragedy sparked a massive investigation into Warner Brothers, Landis, and the production crew. In 1987, 5 years after the accident, John Landis, along with 4 other crew members, was put on trial for involuntary manslaughter. The case was groundbreaking. Never before had a major Hollywood director faced criminal charges over an on-set death. The prosecution argued that Landis had recklessly endangered the cast and crew, insisting on using children in dangerous night shoots. despite child labor laws forbidding minors from working past 8 p.m. or near explosives. The defense argued that the crash was a freak accident, unpredictable and unavoidable. The trial lasted 9 months, drawing enormous media attention. Crew members gave emotional testimony about the chaos of that night. The families of the children sat in court, demanding justice. In the end, Landis and the others were acquitted. No one served prison time. But the trial left scars on the families, on the industry, and on Landis's reputation. John Landis's career never fully recovered. Though he continued to direct films like Coming to America and Three Amigos, the shadow of Twilight Zone never left him. To this day, many view him as a man who escaped responsibility for a tragedy he helped cause. Steven Spielberg, though not directly involved in the accident, was deeply shaken. As a producer on the film, he distanced himself from Landis afterward. Spielberg later called the incident an accident I'll never get over. Their once close friendship ended, and Spielberg became far more cautious about on-set safety in his own productions. The human toll was devastating. Vic Morrow was 53, a respected actor known for combat, and Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. Friends remembered him as professional, generous, and deeply dedicated to his craft. For the families of Micah Din Liu and Renee Chun, the loss was beyond comprehension. Both children were hired illegally, without proper permits, and placed in one of the most dangerous scenes imaginable. Their deaths sparked outrage about Hollywood's disregard for child safety, and lawsuits eventually led to financial settlements. But no amount of money could heal the grief. If there was one legacy of the tragedy, it was reform. The Twilight Zone accident forced Hollywood to confront its lax approach to safety. Child labor laws were strictly reinforced. On-set safety coordinators became mandatory. Stunts and pyrotechnics faced more regulation, with unions demanding better protections. The Directors Guild of America and other unions began pushing harder against unsafe practices. Insurance companies also tightened requirements, making it more expensive for productions to cut corners. Every time a dangerous stunt is proposed in modern filmmaking, someone brings up Twilight Zone, the movie, as the cautionary tale. When Twilight Zone, the movie, was released in 1983, the tragedy loomed large. Critics were divided on the quality of the segments, but the accident overshadowed everything. Audiences couldn't watch Vic Morrow's scenes without remembering how he died. The film made modest money, but its reputation was permanently stained. To this day, when people talk about the movie, they don't talk about Spielberg's whimsical segment or George Miller's tense reimagining of Nightmare at 20,000 feet. They talk about the helicopter crash. The film became less a piece of entertainment and more a grim memorial. Like many Hollywood tragedies, conspiracy theories emerged. Some claimed the production was cursed, echoing the eerie themes of the original Twilight Zone series. Others believed Landis's arrogance had doomed the shoot, as if hubris itself had invited disaster. Even decades later, fans debate whether the accident was an unavoidable fluke or a preventable crime. But what most agree on is this: Twilight Zone. The movie represents the moment Hollywood lost its innocence. Rod Serling's Twilight Zone once promised to transport audiences to a world of imagination, mystery, and wonder. But its cinematic revival in 1983 will forever be remembered for something else: a horrific accident that stole 3 lives and exposed Hollywood's darkest flaws. The deaths of Vic Morrow, Micah Din Liu, and Renee Chun forced the film industry to face the consequences of reckless ambition. They became symbols of why safety matters more than spectacle, and why every decision on set carries real human stakes. The accident did not just change one film. It changed the entire film industry. And in a cruel twist of irony, Twilight Zone, the movie, became the ultimate Twilight Zone story itself, a tale of greed, hubris, and tragedy that blurred the line between fiction and nightmare.